What's going on, guys? Welcome in. Happy Red Friday. It is the Chief Zone podcast. And yes, we are combining the Chief Zone and the Red Friday live chat today. Very rare occasion where we do that kind of thing. And because of the Chief schedule with Monday Night Football coming up and also my schedule, just flying in back home last night in Kansas City, I had to do the podcast later in the week. So that is why we are doing a Friday episode of the Chief Zone podcast. Welcome in, guys. Hope you guys are having a great week. Appreciate all of you who tuned in to the podcast while I was on vacation. Yes, still the podcast while on vacation because that's how dedicated we are. That is how dedicated we are. And of course, you know, the Chiefs' best team in the NFL right now. Got to stay on top of all of that stuff. Hey, appreciate all the podcast downloads. It's one of the most downloaded Chiefs Zone podcasts we've had in quite some time. Obviously, that was a post-game podcast, but it was not necessarily during post-game because I had to record that a day later. I was at the game and everything. So we still had a lot of people tune in. And that was awesome. So thank you guys so much. People who tuned in live and then listened later after it was fully uploaded. You guys have been doing a tremendous job sharing the podcast links, the content on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those places. So thank you guys so much. It's been by far the best year we've had of the podcast and just social media content and growth in general. So thank you all who've been a part of that this season, especially a lot of the Chiefs haters out there. You guys are definitely helping drive that as well. So I can't forget about you guys. You guys are a part of this as well. So appreciate you guys. All right. A lot of things to get into here on this episode of the Chief Zone podcast. By the way, if I am too loud or too low, please let me know because I'm reconnecting all my podcast equipment back here at the studio. So some of it sounds a little weird on my end. Hopefully it sounds fine on your guys' end. But do let me know if the audio sounds normal or if it's too low, too high. That way I can adjust it as we go. With that said, things to go over here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. DeAndre Hopkins getting acclimated more with the Chiefs. He's going to now have a full week of practice and an extra day because the game is going to be on a Monday night. Joshua Uche now in Kansas City has had a couple of practices with the Chiefs. What does this mean for the defensive line in general as they move forward and get ready for the Bucs and for the second half of the season? The rumor mill has Kansas City looking to acquire another player via a trade. Can the Chiefs do it? We'll get into that. Xavier Worthy shared a funny story over on the Rich Eisen show. And by the way, the Chiefs have shown drastic improvement in one category you will want to hear about. Actually, two categories where they've improved a lot. There's one NFL player that might get fined for something that'll surprise and maybe even upset some of you. Kelly Stafford and her husband, they dressed up as Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. That's funny, considering her recent comments. And then, of course, I'll break down the game between the Chiefs and the Bucs. I will give you guys my prediction, go in depth with all of that. This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the place where I go to for all of my ticketing needs. That is where I went to get my Chiefs and Raiders tickets. Sat on the 11th row, but because of the way my section is, we were right above the visiting team's tunnel, the Chiefs tunnel where they go in and out of. So it was technically the front row of that section specifically. So got to sit front row right above the opposing team's visiting tunnel. That was a lot of fun seeing the Chiefs go in and out. And of course, the Chiefs photographer, one of their photographers, captured a nice moment with my family and I as we're waving our Super Bowl flags and the players are leaving to go to the locker room after the game. So that was a really cool moment. So I appreciate them capturing that moment. And that was a fun game. Maybe not as fun watching it on TV, but sometimes when you're at an event, it's always a little different just being there. Because of the atmosphere and everything. The Tomahawk Chop took place a couple of times that afternoon in Allegiant Stadium, so that was great. And the Chiefs, of course, undefeated over at Allegiant Stadium. They own that stadium. It is Arrowhead West, the Arrowhead Casino, whatever you want to call it. When you have to have a debate online among Chiefs fans as to what that stadium should be called, Arrowhead West or Arrowhead Casino, that is how you know you own that stadium. The Raiders are 0-5 against the Chiefs in that stadium. The Chiefs are 6-0 with a Super Bowl win in that stadium before the Raiders could even play a playoff game there. That's embarrassing. And by the way, I want to address something for a moment here, because there have been a lot of non-Chiefs fans commenting, bro, it's the Raiders. What are you flexing over? You're right. It is the Raiders. Probably why they shouldn't be talking so much with the formula or the recipe to beat Mahomes and then the Kermit the Frog puppet crap, all of that stuff. So if you want to drive that narrative of, oh, it's the Raiders, what's the big? First of all, it's a rivalry game. Of course, you should always flex when you beat your rivals. I don't care how bad they are. Second of all the shit the Raiders were talking, you gotta suffer the consequences in the social media era, as I like to call it. When you do all that talking, be prepared for a lot of people to talk back. That's exactly all the people who were thrilled about AP over in Raider Nation, thrilled about AP getting hired. They all want him fired now. So have fun with that, Raider Nation. See you guys later this month for Black Friday, or Red Friday, as we like to call it here in Kansas City. With that said, let's get right into it here. A lot of things to get into, so let's waste little time. Let's start with non-Chiefs news that impacts the Chiefs in a way. So last night, I'm sure you guys all saw Thursday Night Football, the New York Jets, they were the betting favorites, which was a surprise to me. But the Chiefs did get some help as the Jets beat the Texans Thursday night, and it wasn't necessarily a blowout, but it wasn't close either. And I think you're starting to see that, teams like the Texans, the Bucs, who the Chiefs will play Monday night, they're starting to struggle with some of the absences with their wide receivers. I mean, listen, Kansas City's no different. They've been dealing with that struggle too, but they're finding a way to still win, which we've gone over many times. So I'm not going to go over that too much here. But the Texans, they were one of 3 6-2 teams in the AFC who were 2 games behind Kansas City. They fell to the Jets, so they are now 6-3 on the season. The Ravens, they were also a 2-loss team, and with their defeat against the Browns in a big upset last Sunday, they are no longer right behind 2 games behind Kansas City. So the only 2 6-2 teams are the Steelers and the Bills. So those 2 teams are right behind the Chiefs. And by the way, all of the 7 playoff teams we have right now in the AFC playoff picture. So, and I'm doing this off the top of my head. The Chiefs are obviously number 1, but the other teams, 2 through 7, and I don't know exactly what order, but you got the Steelers, the Bills, the Ravens, and then for the wild card teams, you've got the Chargers, the Broncos, and there's another team, the Ravens. Yeah, the Ravens are the other team. So why am I mentioning that? Because the Chiefs will either play all of those other 6 teams that are right now in the playoff picture, or will play them later, have played them already. They already beat the Ravens. They already beat the Chargers. They play the Broncos twice later in the season. They will play the Steelers on Christmas. They'll play the Bills later this month. By the way, I mentioned this earlier today. The Chiefs, they have the 5th best strength of victory percentage this season, tying the Lions. What do the Chiefs and Lions have in common? They both have the number 1 seed for right now in their respective conferences. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I know there's a narrative out there, and I love narratives about this Chiefs team. It's the refs, and now it's all too easy of a schedule. You can't really say it's an easy schedule this year, because the Chiefs are playing first place division teams like they do every year, essentially. Not only that, all of the 6 other playoff teams right now in the AFC playoff picture, the Chiefs will either play all of them or have already played them at least once. So you can't give me this whole crap of, the easy schedule. No, you can't be doing that. I know Bengals fans who, by the way, have gotten very quiet recently on this Facebook page. They always like to bring up how the AFC West is too easy, and the AFC North, that's the real division to be in. Well, the Chiefs, during this 13-game winning streak, by the way, I can't even remember how many games it is anymore. I have to think about that for a second. That's how many games in a row the Chiefs have won, 13. During this 13-game win streak, the Chiefs beat the Ravens twice and the Bengals twice. So you can't really do the whole, the Chiefs aren't an easy no, because they're undefeated against the AFC North, 4 times since the start of this win streak. So you can't really do that either. Ida asks, who are we going to lose to? Listen, the Chiefs are going to. By the way, Chase has a good comment here. You can't count the Broncos out. They're rising up. I do agree. In fact, I would not be shocked if the Broncos get the season sweep over the Chiefs. I think they're going to play the Chiefs very close when they do meet later this month. And then for that Week 18 game, I can see Kansas City resting their starters and possibly losing that game also. So that is a possibility. The Bills, listen, the Chiefs, for whatever reason, they just don't do well against the Bills in the regular season. I'm not a big fan of history repeating himself. Every season is a different season, but I don't know. I could see the Chiefs, but at the same time, the Bills, they're not really the greatest team either. So look at the quality of wins the Bills have had this year. Have they defeated a team with more than 3 victories this season? I don't believe they have. So you look at Kansas City's strength of victory and the Bills' strength of victory, not even close. Not even close. So listen, here's what I'm going to get at here, because when you look at Kansas City right now, they're 7-0. They got 5 games in the month of November. If you can walk into December with a 12-0 record or an 11-1 record, I love their chances of getting the number 1 seed at that point. Because if you go into the month of December with a let's just say 11-1 record. Let's just go with 11-1. Who would that one loss possibly be to? Maybe Buffalo. And let's just say that the Buffalo game is the loss for the month of November. Well, in December, you have a chance to kind of make up for that against Houston and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense kind of, still some question marks there, but for right now, they're doing well. And their defense, maybe one of the best defenses alongside Kansas City this season. I've been impressed with Pittsburgh's defense all year long. I think TJ Watt is the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. But I digress. If the Chiefs can go into December 11-1, who do they play? They play the Chargers Sunday Night Football on December the 8th. That's their first December game. December the 15th, that's a Sunday. That's Cleveland. Should be able to take care of Cleveland. Then you got a very difficult schedule here where you have a 6 days to prepare for Houston, and then 5 days. It's almost like you're coming off a Thursday night game. 5 days to prepare for Pittsburgh. If the Chiefs can lock up the number 1 seed on Christmas, and that's going to be a very difficult game. But if the Chiefs can lock up the number 1 seed right there, they don't need to play that Week 18 game. Well, the starters don't need to play that Week 18 game. That would be huge. And then because there's already a big gap for the Chiefs between Week 17 and Week 18, because Week 17, they play on Wednesday, which is Christmas, but it's in the middle of the week. So you play on Wednesday, and it's almost like a mini-bye, kind of like a Thursday night football game. And then that Week 18 game is going to be literally a week and a half away. So at that point, you can give your starters a lot of rest. Then you get the number 1 seed, even more rest. And again, we don't know Hollywood Brown exactly what's going to happen with him, if he's going to come back or not. There's a lot of optimism that he will play this season. But given the type of season this has been, injury-wise, which has been terrible for the Chiefs, you need that number 1 seed locked up on Christmas. That would be a great Christmas gift, would it not? That would be the bow on top, no pun intended, for that day. And that'll give you that comfort going into Week 18. I just think in general, an 11-1 record going into December will give me a lot of confidence. If they're 12-0, dude, that conference might get locked up before Christmas. Very strong chance. I don't think they can go undefeated. But to go back to Edith's question, it's like, what if the Chiefs can beat Buffalo? When are they going to lose? I mean, listen, maybe they have a trap game against Vegas or Carolina, maybe Cleveland. But it's like, man, I just have a very difficult time with straight up confidence picking a Chiefs loss on the schedule. I picked them to lose 3 games. I had them going 14-3. I still think, they'll drop a couple, which is fine because that should allow you to have the number 1 seed wrapped up going into week 18, which again would be enormous. We saw what happened last year when the Chiefs had the number 3 seed locked up going into week 18 against the Chargers. The only starter who played was Chris Jones because he was playing for a $1.5 million incentive or $1.25 million, whatever it was. But everyone else rested. Travis Kelce, they did not give him the 16 yards, and rightfully so. You don't need to give someone the 1,000-yard record adding onto that. And by the way, it paid off because Travis Kelce went out there and had one of the best postseasons he's ever had for the Chiefs. Phenomenal postseason run for him. The first half of the Super Bowl, very quiet for him. I think he only had like 2 or 3 yards in that one. And then he went off and finished with 96 yards, I believe, in the Super Bowl. So Travis Kelce had a great Super Bowl run, considering, with the offense, what it was last year. They really stepped it up, and Travis Kelce definitely elevated his game to a whole new level during that struggling season the Chiefs had on offense last year. So not that the Chiefs offense is struggling as much this year. They are improving in certain areas. The Chiefs offensively have the second best third down conversion rate at 51%. The Bucs are at 55%. And by the way, that is declining because they don't have the same offensive players they had. And we'll get into that later because, boy, that Bucs team has really struggled without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And possibly Sterling Shepard also. Red zone offense, the Chiefs were 29th in red zone offense coming off the bye week. They're now 23rd in that category. So they have improved in that area as well. The Chiefs are playing some damn good football right now on offense. It's still not pretty. It's not, 2018 Mahomes where he had 50 touchdowns and 5,000 passing yards, but they're doing enough to win football games. The Chiefs defense right now is top 5 in the NFL in points allowed per game. The Chiefs offense, they're top 10 in scoring this season. Again, I know this Chiefs offense top 10 is not the standard, but for crying out loud, man, and I know we've gone over this many times, and I said I'm not going to touch on it too much here, but it just feels like we can't ever have a discussion about the Chiefs without discussing what they've really overcome. The loss of Isaiah Pacheco, which he is expected to come back soon. The loss of Rashee Rice, he's not expected to return. Hollywood Brown might come back, but he was supposed to be a huge part of your offense this season, and he's yet to play in the regular, only played one preseason snap, got hurt on that snap. So for the Chiefs to be doing everything that they're doing this season, and Juju obviously not playing, DeAndre Hopkins, even though he only caught a couple of passes from Mahomes, his presence still made a difference, and Travis Kelce acknowledged that on his podcast, on the New Heights podcast. So, this has been far from a perfect season for Kansas City. Record-wise, you don't see that. Isaac, we'll get into that. The short answer, though, their defense is bad, really bad. But in general, with the Chiefs, things are just clicking at the right time. Things are clicking at the right time for the Chiefs as a whole. The defense is just, what do you say about the defense at this point? The defense is even getting better statistically speaking, which is hard to believe. You think they can't get any better. They do. I still cannot get over that third down or fourth down sack by Turk Wharton, and George Karlaftis created some penetration there. The momentum shifted drastically in that game. The Raiders were not the same afterwards. They just weren't. They really weren't. Even the Raiders fans at the stadium, which by the way, they were outnumbered by Chiefs fans, they were just completely out of it after that fourth down sack. They got an interception, and it was on a tip pass right there from one of the defensive linemen, and they got the ball inside the 5. I thought it was going to be a pick 6, but they got it inside the 5, and they couldn't score. That is how damn good Kansas City's defense has been. They kept Lamar Jackson and the Ravens out of the end zone right before halftime, and they did the same thing at the end of that game. He had a wide open Zay Flowers on the second to last play. Should have got the ball much sooner to Isaiah Likely. Probably would have had that touchdown, but we all know his toe was just a teeny tiny bit out, and that is more than enough to rule in an incompletion. Against the Bengals, kind of an up and down performance in terms of red zone defense. Still, the times where they held them to a field goal. Key, obviously, considering they won that game by 1 point against the Falcons. Yeah, sure, there was that penalty they got away with there, but they got the ball back, and they got 3 penalties in a row, too. One of them on a BS call on McDuffie. So as far as I see it, that was the makeup call. And on 4th and inches, they decide to run a terrible play where they lose 3 yards. So this Chiefs defense has really come through in some great situation against the Chargers also. Don't forget about that. That 4th down goal line stop right there against Justin Herbert. So this Chiefs offense has been great in the red zone. They struggled a little bit against San Francisco, but that was a game where, San Francisco, they got a garbage time touchdown and the Chiefs won by 10 points. So when you allow a garbage time touchdown and still win by 2 possessions on the road, that is pretty good. The Chiefs, when it comes to their red zone offense, what were they? 4 of 5 against the 49ers and 3 of 4 against the Raiders, both road games. So the Chiefs, their red zone offense has not only improved, they've been doing a much better job of that on the road. And now they have an opportunity to be even better against a very weak Tampa Bay team. And by the way, I do apologize. Yeah, my voice is still a little raspy from last week being at the game. So I got to try to tone it down this Monday night. But neither here nor there. So it's great to see the Chiefs showing the improvement that they are. Second best 3rd down offense in the league, and red zone offense 23rd in the league, which is still low, but they have improved quite a bit since the bye week in the last 2 games. So it's great to see the Chiefs improving the way they are the past couple of games. By the way, this is also the Red Friday live chat, so please ask any questions you have, and I'll try to read them as I go along. If I miss your question, please ask it again. Because like I said, this is a podcast and a Red Friday live chat, so I'm going to be multitasking a lot. Chase says, who do you think we end up losing next season once all of our studs are back in good health? Pirine, Hunt. Yeah, this is a really, really, really good question. I've already been thinking about this a lot, and I know a lot of people have as well. Justin Reed, I think, is someone that might end up going elsewhere to go get a big payday from another team. I think you can get back Hollywood Brown for a cheap price. I don't think Hollywood Brown is in position to demand a lot of money. DeAndre Hopkins, if he wins a Super Bowl here in Kansas City, a part of the three-peat, is this someone that would want to stick around and try to get more opportunities and willing to do it for less money? Listen, I said a long time ago, I think the Chiefs are going to be able to get guys for less money. And you're seeing that right now. You really are. And I know Hollywood hasn't done anything for the Chiefs, but here's the thing. I know a lot of people are saying Hollywood is not worth bringing back. I think he is, man. I know injuries have been a big part of that guy's career, but the guy just has such an incredible skill set to where he is kind of worth the gamble right now. Like you have to take a risk on him. The amount of practice reps he and Mahomes had this offseason and in training camp was, he was supposed to be a huge part of that offense. And I think the Chiefs would love to have him back and try to run it back one more time, see what happens there, because I think Hollywood and Hopkins and Rice, when he comes back from his suspension, Xavier Worthy, what if Juju chooses to come back? I think it's really going to be a special offense. It's crazy. Listen, if Rice, Hollywood, and Juju, if they were all healthy, would Hopkins be on the team? Probably not. But now he is. And you have so many great wide receivers under contract right now. Unfortunately, not everyone's healthy. But what if you do find a way to bring them back next season? What kind of an offense are you going to have then? Trey Smith is the guy you got to think about. That dude is going to hit the bank, either from Kansas City or from another team. I don't know. Matt's asking, yeah, I do sound like Mahomes. Hey, guys, come on. We need to play, coach. Okay, I'll stop. What quarterback do you think they're targeting? Marshawn Lattimore, I know, is a popular name that's out there. I know this is not a very popular name at all, but I'll throw it out there. What if they went after a free agent? What if they had another reunion? Marcus Peters. I know he has not played well at all since leaving Kansas City. He had one good year with the Rams, But after that first year with the Rams, Marcus Peters has been really bad. But, I mean, do you consider that reunion? Because he might not require a lot of money. He's not going to demand much. And that's probably someone who you can really bring into this defense with Spags, because he's never played for Spags before. I mean, listen, if you can give Kareem Hunt a second chance, couldn't you do the same with Marcus Peters? Because I know Marcus Peters, there was a behavior issue there. But I'm just throwing that name out there. Mike Pinnell at the age of 33 having the best year of his career. Yeah, and Spags noted that today. And so did Cullen, the defensive line coach. He really is. He really is playing well. And I'm glad the Chiefs brought him back. Look, you see a lot of guys that leave Kansas City and go elsewhere. And I know everyone's situation is different. Juju wanted more money. Kareem got in trouble. Jody Fortson, he wanted an opportunity elsewhere. And I know Fortson's out for the season, which is really unfortunate because the guy does a good job with his role as a depth player. But man, he just has struggled staying healthy, and it just sucks, man. Like, injuries suck so much. I don't need to tell you guys that. You guys already know this season we've had a lot of great guys injured and not available. But in general, with this Chiefs team, Pinnell's playing really well. Wharton's playing really well. The Chiefs are not getting a lot of sack totals, but they're finding a way to get to the quarterback and pressure him. If you can't get the sack, get the pressures. And that's exactly what the Chiefs have been doing. So it's been a lot of fun watching this Chiefs defense. They get Joshua Uche in. Mike Dana did return to practice. FAU, I think they're starting to lose their patience with him now. Charles Omeniwood's expected to come back pretty soon. This is a great defensive line right now. This really is. I'm excited to see what Uche is going to do as a Chief, because that guy was not used much in New England when he should have been. He has the 5th highest pressure rate since 2022. I don't know how you don't use that guy in New England, but he was inactive for Sunday's game against the Jets, where they pulled off the upset, even with losing Drake May and winning the way they did with their other quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. But yeah, Uche was inactive, and that's when he knew he was on his way to Kansas City, essentially. By the way, the rumor out there is that they're looking for a quarterback, and I know we've already addressed that here in the comments. I don't know what the Chiefs are going to get, though. The Chiefs have $330,000 in cap space, according to the NFLPA salary cap report. Now, I did doubt the Chiefs in getting a wide receiver. They figured that out. So they're going to need to do something similar with the cornerback if they do get a cornerback, where they're going to have to split the salary with whoever they trade with. Probably going to need to send a favorable draft pick in order to pull that off. So we'll see what the Chiefs do there. But just to let you know, they only have $330,000 in cap space left. That is the second lowest in the NFL. Baltimore has like 100-some thousand. It's not much. So that is the state of the Chiefs salary cap right now. Let's see. I do want to touch on a couple of things outside of the NFL. Kelly Stafford, who she's had her run-ins with Detroit fans. And then, in the last several months, she's complained a lot about Taylor Swift getting too much attention on TV, saying that she's too much of the focus when they only show her for less than a minute every game. By the way, she hasn't even been to many games. I think she's only been to the home games this year. And the Chiefs have had, only 4 home games? They had the Ravens, they had the Bengals, they had the Saints. So this is going to be the 4th home game, this upcoming Monday game, right? So it's not like she's been shown much. She's only been to a few of the home games, or 3 of the home games, none of the away games. She then complained about Taylor Swift again recently on her podcast. And then on Halloween, she and her husband dressed up as Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and her kids dressed up as Swifties. And by the way, video surfaced recently of her kids getting on a private jet and flying over to a Taylor Swift concert. So you're going to bitch about Taylor Swift getting all this attention, yet you and your husband and your kids are all going to dress up as Swifties. Taylor Swift, Kelsey Swifties. And then when she got called out for this in her comments, she backpedaled really hard with, oh, go listen to the podcast. No, we're not giving you any downloads. Give it a rest. But she did say she didn't deny any of those comments either, which to me, that's good enough. If you're going to acknowledge that, to me, that's good enough. Listen, Kelly Stafford, she does get a lot. I mean, she's not Brittany Mahomes or Ciara or Tom Brady's ex-wife, Giselle, but she's still one of the more well-known NFL wives, girlfriends out there. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't know what she has to be jealous of. I know some people have called her out about that. People have been accusing her of being jealous. But what do you care about Taylor Swift getting, quote unquote, too much focus? Again, they're showing her for less than a minute. The most amount they ever showed her was in the Dolphins-Chiefs playoff game last year, and rightfully so, because that game was a blowout. And even then, she was shown for less than a minute. So the complaints about her continue to get weirder and weirder. She hasn't even been to many of the games this year, and you people are still bitching about it. By the way, the Chiefs have a lot of 325 kickoff games, and so do the Rams, because the Rams are a West Coast team. The hell do you care? Aren't you worried about your husband's team anyway? Like, you're probably not even watching a lot of the Chiefs games because you're at Rams games. So what does this matter to you in the long run? Like, seriously, what is the obsession? It's funny that people who hate on Taylor Swift and claim she's on TV way too long are the ones who are talking about her the most. Funny how that all works. Peter is asking, when are we expecting Hollywood's return? Late in the regular season or in the playoffs? That's what we're told. So somewhere late January, late December, or early January, somewhere around then. Somewhere there. Matthew says the Chiefs defense might quietly be one of the best units in the NFL has ever seen. I don't know if I would say quietly, Matthew, because everyone's taking note of it. Now, statistically, are they doing some things that don't show up on the stat sheet? That I can get behind, because they're not forcing a lot of turnovers. This year, the sack total is not where it is compared to last year, but they're still getting all those big stops. Eric says Peters went for the ball hawk title in KC, then outside got toasted. That is true. When teams found out they could turn the burners on against him. Yeah, that's true. That's why I'm wondering, could he maybe improve under that area with Spags? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Veach is going to do with $330,000 and $330,266 That is what the Chiefs have to work with. That's not much. That is much. Yeah, that is weird. How are you going to complain about Taylor Swift and then dress up like her? And she says, "Oh, listen to the podcast for all the content." No, I'm not giving you a download. I'm not. I'm sorry. Yeah, Leo Chenal has been another guy. Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying, Matthew. Like, Leo Chenal very quietly has been having a very good season. Turk Warden, Mike Pennell. Yeah, I think I get what you're trying to say, Matthew. There are a lot of guys on this team, statistically speaking, individually. Yeah, their stats are not there. And by the way, I cannot remember which assistant coach it was. And you know what? I'm going to look it up because I really want to give that coach credit for what he said in his press conference today. Because he literally said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he used the word bitching, where there have been players in the past who've been bitching about not getting the shine with their stats. And he mentioned on this team that's not the case. Matt Nagy even said that too. He said it in a more G-rated manner. But it is really refreshing to hear that, you know, guys are buying in. Travis Kelce's not worried about the stats. You know, Kareem Hunt didn't have the best game statistically. He doesn't give a shit about that. The Chiefs defense, a lot of those guys. Trent McDuffie's yet to get an interception. You have two rookies this year who got an interception, but he's not worried about that. He's worried about winning football games, which is really refreshing to see. And that is what Brendan Daly, that's what it was. Brendan Daly, the former Patriots defensive assistant, and Tom Brady even shouted him out during that Fox broadcast between the Chiefs and 49ers. Yeah, Brendan Daly, and that's kind of interesting coming from him because he was in New England for a long time where they won a lot of Super Bowls. And by the way, that guy is Thanos. I don't know if people realize that. He won 3 rings with the Patriots, and he's won 3 more with the Chiefs. That guy is literally on a Thanos tier. I just hope people are aware of that. But Brendan Daly did make a point of that where, yeah, there are guys who are not thriving statistically speaking, but they're doing the next best thing. Last topic here, and I'll continue to read more of your guys' comments and questions. Please keep them coming. I do want to get into this before we get into the Chiefs and Bucs breakdown. Nick Bosa is expected to get fined tomorrow. Now, of course, tomorrow is the infamous fine day. Saturday is when the NFL hands down the fine. I think the players have already been notified that they're fined, but it becomes public on Saturday. Nick Bosa is expected to get fined for wearing a Make America Great Again hat when he crashed the Sunday Night Football postgame interview on TV. Now, this is going to be a big deal for obvious reasons. We're not going to get political here, but what I will say is this. Listen, I understand political tensions are high right now. They have been in the last 8 to 10 years. Regardless of what your opinion is, if you do find Nick Bosa, you're setting a very dangerous precedent there. I mean, listen, you have players, you're allowing players to have messages on the back of their helmets, and I get that's part of their helmets. The only logic you have to finding Nick Bosa, and by the way, I'm going to plead guilty here. I do not know what brand creates the Make America Great Again hats. It didn't look like the traditional MAGA hat. But the only logic is if it's not Nike apparel on the field, that then I can see them fining Bosa for it. I think the UFC had a similar thing where they have Colby Covington, who, you know, is an unashamed supporter of Donald Trump's. He was trying to wear a lot of Donald Trump gear to his press conferences. And I think at the time, Reebok was the official apparel partner of the UFC. And the UFC stepped in and let Colby Covington know, hey, you can't be wearing this apparel here because it is not Reebok apparel. So either you got to wear non-athletic apparel or it's got to be Reebok. Again, that was what the UFC did. I can see the NFL fining Bosa logically just for that reason right there. That is it. Other than that, even if they do fine him because of the apparel agreement, it's still this is still going to be insane with the media. It is going to be a big deal on Saturday and over to Sunday, and then, you know, all of the big name people in the media who work on weekdays, they're going to make a big deal about it on Monday morning and Monday afternoon, whenever they're on TV or radio, whatever. So get ready, because if that fine does get announced tomorrow, social media is going to be a barn burner, and the people in the media who cover politics, that is going to be quite a show. That is going to be quite a show. So get ready for that. All right, let's get into the game between the Chiefs and the Bucs, the final game before Election Day. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to do that. But my bad. It's going to be an interesting 24 hours. Got Monday Night Football, and then you got Election Day. So that'll be an interesting 2 days for everybody, especially in Kansas City. The referee for this game going to be John Hussey. It's going to be on ESPN, so you all know who's announcing the game, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. The Chiefs opened as 8.5-point betting favorites. That has now gone up. The Chiefs are now 9-point betting favorites. That is the second most. That's the second biggest line for this week. The Ravens over the Broncos, that started at 9 and is now at 9.5. The Chiefs are minus 485 favorites, and the Bucs money line is at plus 370. The over under for this one is 45.5. Bucs head coach Todd Bowles was the head coach for the Jets at one point. He worked briefly with Andy Reid in Philly in 2012. After a successful run with Arizona, he became the Jets head coach, came back to being a defensive coordinator, went to the Bucs, then was promoted to head coach once Bruce Arians stepped away. The offensive coordinator for the Bucs is Liam Cohen, former Rams and Kentucky offensive coordinator in the last few years. This is his first year with the Bucs, so his first year as the offensive coordinator of the Bucs. Their number is a little misleading right now. They're fourth in total offense, second in passing, 10th in rushing, and they are fourth in points scored per game at 29.4 points per game. But all of that kind of is irrelevant because of the losses of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And I believe Mike Evans was one of the league leaders in touchdown receptions. And Chris Godwin, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Chris Godwin was leading the NFL in receptions or yards or maybe both. I apologize. I don't have that in front of me. But when he went down with that injury on Monday night against the Ravens a couple of weeks ago, that dude was leading the league in one of those categories. I know that for a fact. I just can't remember which one it was. So the Bucs losing two wide receivers, they still have been able to find a way to score, but they don't have that clear-cut number one guy, except there is a tight end that they've been using a lot more lately, and I'll get into that in a moment. Baker Mayfield, he's second in the NFL in passing yards. He's first in passing touchdowns. He has just under 2,200 passing yards, 21 touchdown passes. He's also tied first with Mahomes and Love for interceptions thrown with 9. And he's also had, he's been sacked 20 times. That is the 8th most in the NFL. So a lot of stats, the good ones and the bad ones. He's in the top 10, really top 2 in those key ones right there. Like I mentioned, Godwin and Evans both getting hurt in that Monday Night Football game. That has certainly changed things. Still, though, Baker has thrown for more than 300 yards in both games, had 330 against in one game. I can't remember which one it was against, and then 370 in the other game. I think it was 370 against the Falcons. Baker has thrown 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in each of the last 2 games where he lost. Godwin and Evans against the Ravens, and also another 3 touchdown, 2 interception performance game against the Falcons last week. Tight end Cade Otton, that guy has kind of been the unsung hero for the Buccaneers. He's gotten involved quite a lot these last 2 games. He had 163 yards the first 6 games. He's had 181 the last 2 games. Let me repeat that. 163 yards the first 6 games, 181 the last 2 games. The Chiefs have been inconsistent in defending tight ends this season. So this is definitely a player to keep your eye on for Kansas City. Otton has really rose to the occasion. Let me just double check. What number is he wearing? Just so you guys have that. He is 88. And that number definitely means a lot in Kansas City. So he is going to be wearing the great 88 for the Bucs. He scored 2 touchdowns against the Falcons. Wasn't enough to win, but he certainly helped keep them in the game. Who are they going to use in the passing game? Who knows? They have Bucky Irving, who they've been using a lot, both running and receiving, but he's not practicing at the moment due to a toe injury. Rashad White is still unsure if he's going to be available. He had 71 receiving yards against the Ravens. They used him more because of the loss of Godwin and Evans. They have Jalen McMillan, who's a speedster. He's actually one of their return guys. He had 3 catches before the 2 big injuries, and since then he's caught the ball 7 times. He's been targeted 15 times, but has only pulled in 7 of those passes for 50 yards the last 2 games. Trey Palmer, another guy for them. Raheem Jarrett, he made a season debut last week, catching 3 passes for 58 yards. So these are a lot of names that a lot of you guys probably are not familiar with, because the Bucs have been using guys that they have not used a lot of before. And by the way, before I forget, because I already did forget and don't want to forget later on, for the injury report in this game, you look at the Chiefs. Somebody, by the way, I apologize, I did miss this question, but somebody was asking about Patrick Mahomes, because he is on the injury report with an ankle injury, but he has been a full participant. In fact, there are a lot of guys on the injury report. You have Drew Tranquill with a chest injury, Derek Nottie with a knee, Mahomes with an ankle, McCole Hardman with a knee, but all of them have been a full participant this week in practice. Kareem Hunt had a quad injury. He was limited on Thursday. But today, he was a full participant. So that is good to see there. Mike Dana has been practicing this week after missing the last couple of weeks, but he has been limited. Juju's the only player who did not practice today. Najee Johnson and Ethan Driscoll, they did not practice yesterday. Ethan Driscoll was ill, so that's not a big deal. He came back to practice today. And then Najee Johnson, he is in the concussion protocol. He did not practice yesterday, but was limited today for the Chiefs. So that is good news to hear that Najee Johnson is feeling better, especially with the cornerback position already being thin as it is with some of the recent injuries with Johnson and Jalen Watson a couple of weeks ago. So that is the situation. So, okay, Ruth is saying it's ridiculous. Singers and actors are allowed to have personal life, but athletes aren't. That's not quite what's going on. Listen, I see a lot of people, and Antoinette, I do see your comment about politics staying out of football. Listen, I don't agree with politics staying out of sports. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a singer, if you're a football player. I think everyone has opinions. See, if you're going to tell someone stick to sports, that's hypocritical, because maybe we should all stick to sales or stick to flipping burgers or serving tables, right? Because then that would be hypocritical, and you can't really have that line there. Is there a time and place for all that stuff? Sure, but athletes do have a platform. I saw a college player lift his shirt after a touchdown, and he had a shirt underneath that said MAGA. So, that stuff doesn't really bother me, honestly. You would have to be really sensitive to be upset by that kind of thing, in my opinion. No offense to anybody, but it's like, listen, you're an American, you're allowed to have that right. And I get we're in, crazy times, but it's just, look, I would not want to suppress someone because I disagreed with them. That would be terrible. We've already been, listen, it goes both ways, by the way. It really does. Because look at Laura Ingraham from Fox News. She had that big shut up and dribble segment about LeBron James, but she's had athletes on her show. I mean, she had Harrison Butker recently and was interested in his opinions, which great. I think Harrison Butker should be allowed, but you can't have it both ways. She even did the same thing for Drew Brees. And her justification for all that was not very good. But anyway, I just wanted to address that because that's been brought up in the comments by a few people. But back to the game. When you look at Tampa Bay's offense, going to their offensive line, Tristan Wirfs might be one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL right now, might be the best offensive tackle. Pro Football Focus has him graded as the best pass blocker in the NFL. Creed Humphrey is not too far behind. He's fifth in that category. As far as weaknesses on that offensive line, their center, Graham Barton, he's allowed 15 pressures on the year and has committed 6 penalties. Ben Bredson, not very good either. Their left guard, he's allowed 14 pressures. So that interior defensive line for the Chiefs has another opportunity. Wharton's been playing well lately. Pennell, we all know Chris Jones can do a lot. So there's an opportunity the Chiefs might line up Chris Jones right between that center and left guard, that gap right there, that A gap, to try to disrupt the run and the pass. So be ready for that in this game for the Chiefs. Let's go to the Bucs defense. They've got co-defensive coordinators. They've got Casey Rogers and Larry Foote. Rogers is the run game coordinator and the defensive line coach, and Foote is the pass game coordinator and the inside linebackers coach. Foote, by the way, won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers. As a player, he was also Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year in 2001, former Michigan standout. So good history there with him. Casey Rogers, his past was in the college ranks from 94 to 2002, and since 2003, been coaching in the NFL with the Cowboys, Dolphins, Jets, and Bucs. So he's certainly been coaching a very long time in the sport, both in college and in the NFL. Their defense is not very good, though. 30th in total defense, 29th against the pass, 4th worst, 19th against the run, and 28th in points per game allowed. That is the 5th worst in the NFL. Meanwhile, the Chiefs are the 5th best in that category, allowing 17.6 points per game. Like I said, 26.6 points per game allowed for the Bucs. So their defense has not been very good. They've been involved in some high-scoring games this season. But again, with the loss of those 2 wide receivers and the Chiefs' defense being as good as it is this an opportunity where the Chiefs can find a way to limit and even silence the Bucs offense in this game? I like Baker Mayfield. I've always been a big fan of him. I've never understood the criticism for him coming out of college, coming out of Oklahoma. And by the way, I don't feel bad for a lot of athletes, but the way, the whole Cleveland thing went down with him, that was complete BS. And Cleveland's paying a big price for it now. But moving on with this Bucs defense, which does not have a lot of bright spots. Levante David, he's the anchor of that defense right there. He leads the team in tackles with 56. He's also the co-leader in sacks with 3. Their defensive tackle, Vita Day, also has 3 sacks, as does their defensive end, Logan Hall. Their defensive tackle, CJ Brewer, He's got a pair of sacks on the season, and they both came in the game last week against the Falcons on Kirk Cousins. So that is their defensive front there. As far as their secondary, Antoine Winfield, he's in his 5th year with the Bucs. No interceptions this year, at least not yet. He did get a sack a couple of weeks ago, was an All-Pro last year. He actually led the NFL in forced fumbles last season. Trent McDuffie was one of the guys who had a lot of forced fumbles also. So obviously in good company there with the secondary, but has not been the same this season. Their cornerback, Zion McCollum, he's played terrific in coverage this season, has 2 picks. Pro Football Focus has him rated as the number 1 cornerback in the NFL. But the rest of their secondary, not so good. Like I said, Winfield, he's kind of been inconsistent. Their other cornerback, Tyreek Funderburk, I believe is how you say it. He could get picked on a lot by Mahomes, especially if you've got Xavier Worthy using his speed against Funderburk in this game. And so they'll definitely need Winfield to help out to cover him in the secondary there. They've also got Jordan Whitehead, part of that secondary also. Their special teams coordinator, Thomas McCoffey, I believe is how you say his name. He was actually with the Chiefs special teams coaching staff from 2001 to 2002. Of course, Dante Hall was there, recent Chiefs Hall of Famer, recently got into the Chiefs Hall of Fame. He's had plenty of NFL and college stuff over the years. He's been the assistant special teams coordinator for some teams, but he's been the main special teams coordinator since 2011 with LSU, the Jets, the 49ers, the Panthers, the Giants, and now with Tampa Bay. Their kicker, McLaughlin, he's one of the best kickers in the NFL. Has made 13 of 14 field goals. His only miss was against the Ravens on Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago. That was a 55-yarder. So, that long of a miss is still pretty good in general. And then his the punter, Jake Camarda, not very good this season. Maybe the worst punter this season. They benched him and eventually cut him due to a bad season. They brought in Trenton Gill, not doing much better. He's 36th in punt average, and he's averaging 37.6 net yards per punt, which is not good at all. As far as their return specialist, Sean Tucker handles most of the kick returns, and Trey Palmer handles a majority of the punt returns. Sometimes Jalen McMillan gets involved on that as well. Listen, their offense statistically is pretty good, but that is misleading because they are going to be without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Chris Godwin is on IR. Mike Evans is not, but Evans still expected to miss this game here. Sterling Shepard also on the injury report, another wide receiver of theirs. He has a hamstring injury he's dealing with. He has not practiced so far this week. We'll see what happens tomorrow. That is when we'll get the game day designations for some of these players here. But I like Kansas City to win in a blowout. I think for the first time this season, you will get a blowout. I know I predicted it a couple of times, has not come to fruition, but I feel I was pretty confident about the Bengals game. I thought that was going to be a very one-sided game. Obviously, it ended up being a 1-point game, but I do think the Chiefs are going to win in a blowout in this one. By the way, before I do forget, it is expected to rain Monday night. So for those of you who are going out there, going to brave the storm, props to you guys. Have a poncho, have a coat, have whatever you're going to need for that night. But I do have the Chiefs winning this one. I'm going, what did I say? 37-13. I was going to go 27-17, but seeing the Bucs defense and all the weaknesses they have there, I do think, with Hopkins getting a full week, Kelsey, playing much better recently, and with the Bucs missing so many key pieces, and, even though the Chiefs are also missing players, that's actually impacting them in a negative manner, whereas for the Chiefs, it hasn't. I do think the Chiefs can find a way to win in a blowout here. Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce getting involved. I think Kareem Hunt can get more involved. Hopefully they can take the load off him and let Samaje Perine get more involved, because I do think they're giving Kareem Hunt the ball a little too much. And again, not to say Hunt is not capable of it. I just get worried at his age, 29 years old. You don't see a lot of down-for-down running backs in the NFL. I know Hunt was that way, but he's not as young as he once was. But still, I expect a really good game from the offense. I would slam the over in a lot of these areas. I really would. So if you're a betting person, go ahead and slam the over while you can. All right. That'll do it for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. I am going 37-13. Hey, appreciate all of you guys joining me for this combined Chiefs Zone Podcast and Red Friday live chat. We're doing this on a late Friday night. So thank you all for joining me. Appreciate everyone that's been awesome with all of the social media content, sharing them, helping push all the content out there, the podcast as well. Please make sure you guys keep doing that. There will be a pregame live chat. I don't know exactly when, so make sure you have your notifications turned on for Facebook and YouTube. And we will have a pregame live chat Monday late afternoon before the game, and then we'll do our halftime live stream. And I promise this will be a halftime live stream. I lied to you guys last time because I was at the game. I'm not going to be at the game this time. I promise you guys. So we will do a halftime live stream, and it's going to be a late Monday night, but nonetheless, we will do a Chief Zone podcast late Monday after the game. This time we will take your call. So make sure you guys turn on your video chat, click the link, call in, and we'll chat it up after the game. Tuesday, listen, I know everyone's going to be into the election, so I will do a Tuesday podcast because we are doing podcasts the day after games now. So we will do a Tuesday, probably mid to late afternoon podcast the day after. So make sure you guys tune into that as well. It's going to be much sooner, just so we can avoid conflict with all the election stuff. So that'll be that. And then we'll do our traditional Wednesday podcast as well. So we'll have a podcast 3 days in a row. How about that? How about that? All right. My name is Farzin Vasugan. Thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast and the Red Friday live chat combined. I will talk to you all Monday night. Take care.